Okay, it's starting to live stream. Hello, everybody. Welcome to all our members of Spa Professionals Guild, and welcome to all, and to those of you who are not members of Spa Professionals Guild, still welcome. And we hope to have you on board as members of our growing and learning community. So as per usual, oh, you see, Lorato's already. She's shout out from Botswana. Okay, so as per usual, everybody, let's get started with, because there are some new people on today, your name, the name of your spa salon, and then also for our two international guests today, what country you are from. So far we know we have Lorato from Botswana, so hello. And then also everybody, your word, your startup, your welcome word. So how are you feeling right now? So go into the chat box. Let's get started like that as we wait for people to log on. And let's all hear your name, what country you're from, and a word to describe how you're feeling. So there we go. We've got Nungo from sunny Louis Trichardt in Limpopo, South Africa. Nice. Nungo, what's your word? What's your word for today? Let's hear from the rest of you. Come, everybody, get typing, get typing. Let's see. There we go. Samantha, the spa at Cielo Resort in Lusaka, Zambia. I am sick today, flu. Oh, sorry, Sam. But very happy that you could make it to this. So that's good. Hopefully we'll make you feel a bit happier. Surieta from Dione Lifestyle in Brackenfell. That's in Cape Town. She's excited. Danae in Cape Town. She's overwhelmed with the days that are too short. That's quite funny. Danae, that is really funny. And wait till summer comes. Your days are going to be super long. Okay, here we have somebody else logging in. Okay. Nungo, nostalgic because it's been so long. Okay, well, you're back. Anna, Joburg, South Africa. Lorato is a spa owner at Boho Garden Spa. She's very excited, hoping to learn a lot. Yvette is from the UK, but she's living in South Africa. Also flew like, oh no, Yvette, so sorry, man. Okay, Dominique, Northwest in South Africa. She's feeling positive. That's fantastic. I think we seem to have a bit of a flu South Africa at the moment. I don't know what's happening on your side, Finlay, if it's the same.
No, we're middle of summer here, so I think
okay.
Other than, yeah.
Okay, so not too fluish. And Brian, on your side?
Oh, yes. Hi. Hi, everyone. I have actually just been suffering from flu, but I'm fully recovered, happy to say. So very positive.
Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so everybody, have you all introduced yourself? We still have a few to go. We have Heather online. Heather, let us know where you're from. Sam has, Yvette has. I think everybody else has too, hey? Joyce is feeling great. Okay, awesome. Fabulous. Okay, so while we've got some other people logging on, we are live on Facebook as well. I'm going to introduce you to our two guest speakers shortly. But when I was chatting to Finlay about hosting this session for us today, he said, or he put some topics forward to me, and one of them just blew my mind, and I'll tell you why. So for those of you who know me well and have been on your development journey with me, you keep hearing that I keep saying, find ways to personalize your treatments. In fact, stop calling them treatments and call them experiences, because that's ultimately what we want to do, right? Is we want to give everybody that we come into contact with an unforgettable experience. And why? Because it keeps them coming back. Anyway, Finlay said, okay, he wants to do this a little bit differently. And he says, and he knows this guy called Brian. So as I usually do, I look people up. Anyway, I mean, needless to say, Brian is an award-winning DJ, and I am like an ultra or Tomorrowland freak. So that I just thought, oh my gosh, okay, we need this. We so need this, because I wouldn't even know where to start. And I'm going to tell you a little funny story, and those of you who know the story will laugh with me. Is in the spas, everybody always has these Tibetan bowls, you know, to make ding-dong sounds. And I thought, well, let's get a little bit more creative and do something a bit different. And I wasn't quite sure what to do. So I went and I bought some kids' instruments, and I got this triangle, you know, that little triangle that they go ting, ting, ting on. And we started to introduce it to some treatments at a spa that we're busy training the therapists there. And what is the common denominator that every client who has that triangle say to the therapist is, that is so different. I've never had that before. It really got me, I don't know, thinking a bit differently, instead of always listening to whale music and, I don't know, trees and water flowing and all the rest of it. So that's why this is totally up my alley. I can't wait to hear what the two of you are going to share with us. So a little bit to tell you about the two of them, and then they can elaborate if they like. But FINLAY Anderson is the area spa and leisure director of the Intercontinental Hotel Group in the UK. He has 20 years experience in spa and leisure across all levels of spa. He definitely has a passion for pairing nature and technology to create, and here comes the word, unique experiences for both hotel and spa guests. And he's also been awarded Professional Beauty Spa Leader of the Year. And then we have Brian D SOUZA, who is founder and CEO of Open Ear, co-founder of Open Mind, award-winning DJ and music producer, love that, and Scottish Album of the Year winner. So let's hand over to you two. I'm so excited.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My word of the moment, I think, is nervous. So just please bear with me. I'm also very conscious that you're talking to two Scottish guys with fairly strong accents. So I will try and be fairly slow and fairly clear.
We love it. We love it.
So we just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the projects that we've been doing, have done recently, that came together through a sort of desire to innovate, to create things new for a guest, just very conscious that we want to give the guests, do everything that we can, whether it's touch, sound, aromatherapy, experiences to get that effect for them that we owe them when they come to us and give us their time. And their money, that we do everything we can to try and get that. So it's using whatever we can do to do that. And I think a lot of it stemmed out of lockdown, you know, very conscious from a family point of view that if we didn't get out and into nature and have at least an hour's walk, then the dynamic and in the mood of our house was slightly different if we didn't do it to when we did it. So that very much brought it home. And then start to see a lot of athletes and different people that you wouldn't expect to, but suddenly part of their training schedule is forest bathing or sound therapy or time in the garden. So that made me start to think about nature and started to have a look. And I think one of the big sort of stats was that 70% of the population by 2050 will live in a sort of built up urban area. So I grew up, and let me just start my slideshow for you. Hopefully this will work.
It will work.
It will work.
There we go. Gorgeous. We can see it.
So the picture on the left-hand side is basically the end of where my parents' drive stopped. So that's where I grew up to about 16. So the thought of 70% of the population sort of living in built up urban areas with very little nature, very little greenery sort of scared me a little bit. So part of that was how that we can, as a hotel chain, as a spa, sort of help to counteract that, especially in our city centre properties. And then the sort of reliance on music to get me through lockdown, the long days, being in a hotel myself, running thousands of taps to keep water moving. And by chance, sort of Brian did a lot of work for the hotel and providing our music. And then we got chatting one day. And again, probably because we both had a lot of time in our hands at that point, that we started talking about music and the power of music. And Brian revealed to me that he'd studied psychology of music and sounds, and that's what he was into. And at that point in time, that was definitely what I wanted to look at. But one thing that sort of we had to bear in mind is we didn't know what we were opening up to. So what sort of budgets, what sort of teams would we have to facilitate the ideas and the dreams that we had? And also that the UK and especially Scotland, maybe the demographic is slightly more reserved and hasn't opened up to spas and some of the less sort of mainstream treatments. So how we could bring that into mainstream and make people buy into it. And also we just wanted something new and exciting. Our team was coming back from a hard time in lockdown. What could we do to give them new things to try and to do? Oh, is my slide going to move? So then we thought we'd go with the power of sound. And from me and a couple of the Google searches that I did looking at what music, what sound can do, and my own personal experience, you know, when you're sad, what you listen to, when you're happy, upbeat, what you listen to and what it does to you. And then looking a little bit about biophilia and nature sounds. And then Brian sort of blew my mind with all the facts and all the things that he knew and he was coming up with. So I'll let Brian take over and talk to you a little bit more about the technical aspect of it.
Thanks, Finlay. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So yeah, I think the conversation really started, as Finlay described, with a shared kind of passion for music. And I think that's probably something that I'd imagine everyone on this call shares as well. You know, we all have a relationship with music, and we all probably play music in our spa environments and have music throughout our lives. But oftentimes we don't necessarily think about the impact that that's having, you know, on our behavior, on our mood, on our health, etc. And what I've been interested in, you know, since I studied music psychology at university and since I had started my earliest DJ gigs in my teenage years, was just this impact both on our conscious and our subconscious that music and sound has. And it's often something that we don't ever really think about. It's just such an omnipresent and ubiquitous thing in our lives. You know, we're filled with music, the radio, you know, when we wake up, you know, music to work out to, music when we're eating dinner, music when we're entertaining and stuff. And I think we're just so saturated with music and sound that we don't often really think about like what it's doing to us. So I started a company, Marissa say I can't work with her music. Yeah, exactly. But that's contentious and it's subjective. And I think that's something we recognize as well. As some people can, some people can't. It's often down to, you know, what works for you as you know, your working environment, etc. So I started a company alongside my DJ career, which was called Open Ear Music, and we're a music consultancy. We work with, you know, thousands of brands across the world in terms of trying to help them find the right music for their businesses. And as Finlay mentioned, in lockdown, really we wanted to take that conversation in a slightly different direction, off on a tangent, which was like how music and sound can be used for the good of someone's health. And the obvious route for us was to look at, you know, where there's a health aspect of delivering an experience. And that was, you know, obviously in spas, you know, and as an industry, the spa industry is really making this great transition from you know, a beauty-led experience into a more of a well-being-led experience. And that's great. And I think for that to really fully realize itself, you know, harnessing the power of that experience through all senses is really important. And you know, sound is one of these things that, as I said before, can be often overlooked, but is so powerful if you get it right. So through lockdown, I studied sound therapy, and I thought this was a fantastic discipline to really kind of understand a little bit more, because sound therapy for me really kind of like unpacks like what music does to you. So, you know, Marissa mentioned how she goes to festivals, Tomorrowland, etc. You have a communal crowd, all, you know, dancing in the same rhythm. Well, most people at least, you know, to the same beats. And we are this sort of, you know, we have this, you know, communal kind of experience, and it's non-verbal, it's cross-language, it's cross-cultural. You know, we're all at the mercy of this. It's almost like a religious experience where, you know, a DJ or a band will be playing something, and we're all moving in tandem to that sound. Sound therapy is very much the same as that. It's electric, but sound therapy works almost as an inverse to a DJ set. A DJ set is all about bringing you up to a point of euphoria, you know, it's excitement, it's electric, as you said. Whereas sound therapy is doing the opposite on your body. It's bringing you to a state of deep relaxation. You know, that could be in a communal experience where you're in a sound bath or a gong bath. I don't know if many of you in the call have experienced that yourselves. Fantastic experience. You mentioned the singing bowls, and these kind of healing instruments are often, you know, artifacts in the spa, but maybe not necessarily used in the spa experience as much as what they can be. But if used correctly and through a trained sound therapist, you can really activate these different states of mind and state, you know, motive states within the listener. They can really help to then lead to a healing experience. So things that we've listed here: activating this parasympathetic nervous system, so getting away from the fight and flight into the more rest and digest aspects of the nervous system, lowering heart rate, decreasing brainwave state, which I think is really interesting. You know, this move from our kind of very active beta brainwave state into a more kind of like alpha theta and even delta, which is sleep, and using sound in ways that helps really kind of trigger these emotive responses, etc., to create relaxation and transport the listener into a safe space, in essence, that then they're more available to accept that healing process, whether that's a massage or whether it's another form of treatment as well. It can be very good in terms of a complementary kind of part of a holistic experience for listeners. So if we move on to the next slide, you know, we were familiar with the spa market because effectively we worked with the spa market and companies like ISG and with Finlay for 10 years plus with Open Ear. And we really knew that some of the problems that the spa market kind of were contending with when it comes to sound. So typically, you know, playing generic music, you mentioned the whale music, the classic kind of chill out compilations, etc. Poor quality sound, you know, maybe not the investment in sort of sound systems and deliverables in terms of how the sound could be delivered in a way that's going to have a positive impact on the listener, and then maybe not as experience tailored. So just background, you know, not really thinking about the type of treatment, the nature of the experience, the type of you know, subjective taste that the listener might have. And then the other point that we recognized was there's a lot of pseudoscience. You know, you can go on Instagram, as many of you might have done, and there's a lot of kind of stuff around sound and magic healing frequencies and 432 hertz and solfeggio, that's based on ancient Greeks and everything else. And you can get quite mired down in the pseudoscience. And it's, I guess, one of our objectives was to try and, you know, chart a pathway through that by really kind of like, you know, working with organizations that could test scientifically like the actual impacts and then report back to us in terms of how sound could be used and activated, you know, for, you know, with real kind of like a weight of evidence and empirical data that kind of like helps to inform what we're doing. And what we came out with was a company called Swell. Marissa, you mentioned Open Mind, but actually Open Mind was our working title, but we've morphed it into a company called Swell. And Swell launched a few months ago. If you're interested in what we do, swellstudio.io is our website. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see the kind of the three key pillars of what we're doing in terms of Swell from a sound perspective.
Perfect. If I can just jump in for 1 second, Brian, I think just to elaborate on a couple of the points, I think I probably, you know, drove Brian up the wall with the sound quality. And I think, you know, throughout every industry, but especially spa and wellness, so many things are written off because somebody has tried an inferior product or a weaker dose product or an oil, you know, that's very, very poor, or a poorly done treatment. And I think that was one of my fears, that we'd create an amazing sound therapy and Brian would do his thing and then we'd try and play it through an iPad or a Kindle in a room and just things wouldn't work. So I think, yeah, I probably, you know, every time Brian spoke to me, I went, but what headphones, what speakers do we need? It needs to be this, it needs to be that. And then I think, you know, you probably missed it off, Brian, because it's what you do. But I think too many times it's lacking somebody with that knowledge to train the team, and the guys on the ground don't have that knowledge when the guests talk to them or ask them questions and they don't know. So part of why it's so good is we've got Brian, and Brian's doing Zooms with the team or coming up and talking to the team, and actually not just about the guest experience, but what they'll experience and how it all works. And I think that's one of the things that sort of hasn't let us down, has really helped us sort of progress it and having that education piece with it as well. Sorry, Brian, I'll shut up and let you go again.
No, absolutely, all valid points. And I just add to that, you know, this is not about a massive amount of increased spend, because one of the questions and conversation we had, Finlay, was about how can this be cost effective for the spa? You know, we fully understand the pressures that all industries are under, and this was a case of saying, well, can we achieve some of the benefits that, for example, some people receive from going to a sound therapy experience, a sound bath, but deliver it in a way in which you don't need to invest in the space, you know, the room, the sound therapist that's in the room at the time. You know, could this be delivered on a digital setup with an iPhone or an iPad or a device that we already have? Could this hook onto the existing sound system? Could we look at sound systems that aren't going to break the bank, but still give us a ladder up from where we're kind of currently at? And you know, these are the kind of questions that we tested out, and you know, really kind of like, that was a litmus test for us, was like, can we deliver on a speaker system that is going to be affordable? You know, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars or pounds on a loudspeaker system, but that's just not going to be practical for you in everyday life in your spas, especially when you've got multiple treatment rooms. You've got to multiply that cost up multiple times. So I think what we've done is we've found a really good balance, that sometimes it's delivered on headphones, sometimes just Bluetooth speakers has been effective, and sometimes, you know, a nice, you know, middle tier kind of stereo speaker pair that we've got running in Finlay's Blythewood Square in Glasgow has worked very nicely. So it's really up to you. You know, you know, often with sound, it can be very polar in terms of how you deliver it. You know, like if you get it right, it's going to have really a lot of positive impacts and benefits for your spa, your experience, your customers, etc. If you get it wrong, it can have the opposite. You know, so that's the kind of balance you got to tread carefully. But if you're going to play sound, music of any some, you know, sort of type, that's going to be listened to by your audience. That's going to be one of the things that's creating their experience. So you got to think about it, in my opinion, in terms of how you can make the most of that and work within, obviously, the budgets you kind of, you know, you kind of currently have. So we did a lot of testing. We spent a couple of years like working on this approach that we would take, and we borrowed from a lot of different disciplines. The first, and we went on a real journey with this, was going forest bathing and really kind of understanding nature-based therapy, the power of nature, the power of the sound of nature. And there's a lot of research out there in terms of, like, you know, Finlay mentioned it just from his own personal experience, but there's a lot of kind of science and evidence to back that up. You know, being in nature is in essence good for us. And even if you can't be in nature, listening to the sounds of nature is good for us. So that was one of our first pillars. The second pillar was, in essence, music. You know, music composition. We all know, and you know, throughout human history, music has existed. You know, it goes back to the very, you know, foundations and the earliest, you know, versions of mankind. And, you know, we've always had music. It's very intrinsic to our society, our humanity. And over generations, we've really developed very sophisticated ways of which music can be composed to affect your emotions, to affect your mood state, to tell you a story, to have that level of communication that then brings you on a journey or makes you feel in a certain way. So we don't want to deny any of that stuff. We want to bring that into this process. And the third part was, as I described a little bit before, but this discipline of sound therapy, which I find fascinating. That's the way I look at it, is it's really unpacking music down to its frequency components. You know, it's about like how you can harness different elements of sound to then affect the listener in different ways, you know, and really the intention is to bring them into a very kind of, you know, state of deep relaxation, a place where they're ready to receive treatments, like I said before. So through this kind of work and research, we combined these three disciplines, and we created effectively what we do as Swell, which is create Swell sound treatments. Maybe we should call them sound experiences, Marissa, as per your advice. And we also created an app to deliver this. So if Finlay goes to the next slide, you'll see.
Yeah, I think the app was quite a key thing for me, because some of the initial conversations, Brian talked about gong baths and things, and I was like, this is Glasgow, I don't know if that'll translate here, and we're coming out of COVID, and I don't know if the GMs will let us recruit somebody just to be a sound treatment person, or singing bowls or gong baths. And then we started talking about technology. And again, that can be an absolute nightmare when you have 12, 15 treatment rooms with complicated systems on, and it's about to start and somebody can't get logged in, or the app freezes, or it's just not a very counterintuitive system. So it was, over to Brian to make it as simplistic, as uncomplicated as possible, and as cheap as possible as well, and being a sort of business. And then this sort of app has materialized, and it's done everything that we've asked them to do. So I'll hand back and let you talk about, Brian.
Well, that's it. You've described it very well. I mean, the name of the game was making this as inclusive, as easy to use. We feel I understand that no one wants to mess about with technology when we're trying to deliver customer experience. This is as simple to use as we could possibly make it. It has a range of different sound treatments that we're calling, that match up to different skincare brands, or different brands that are in use in the spas that we're working with, or the actual, the treatment itself. That could be done by durations. There's various different durations, and future version of this will be allowing those durations and that type of experience in terms of how the sound is delivered to be very personalized for each of the different spas or treatments or whatever that you needed to do. So that's what we're working on right now. Very exciting AI, machine learning sort of technology that we're building, and that should be coming, moving into next year, which is really exciting. But at the moment, we're having great success, great feedback from customers experiencing this. It also has a range of curated playlists. We don't deny, the need for that in the spa setting, and biophilic sound, which essentially is lots of different beautiful nature sound recordings and very high end equipment that we can also deliver. So I think it would be good to talk you through a few of the different projects that Finlay and I have worked on, because I think this will bring what we're talking about to life a little bit. So the first was Chambre Verte. I'll hand over to Finlay to explain.
Yeah, Chambre Verte was a lot of fun. We were just opening the hotels back up. I'd been speaking to one of the GMs all about nature and being out in nature. It's a very city centre hotel, business area. We do have a nice sort of garden and square out the front, but it was, how can we bring that into the hotels? And can we have a bit of fun, but also can we really sort of drill into it? Does it work? Are guests going to get an effect? What will happen? So we created Le Chambre Verte. We partnered up with a CBD product house and Brian to give us the sounds, to give us the experience, and a sort of local plant specialist. And we absolutely filled a room with plants. It was amazing. Brian created the sort of field recordings. He was out in his garden recording the birds and all of these sorts of amazing things. So then we said, right, we will use the room. We'll ask people to come and stay, but let's do something a bit different. So we had an identical room in the floor below that we just left as a bedroom. The guest stayed in that bedroom, had dinner, stayed overnight. Up the next day, they filled out a short sort of feedback form for us, and then we moved them up to the Chambre Verte. They had their CBD non-alcoholic cocktail on arrival. They had some treatment, spend a bit of time down in the spa, and then spent some time in Le Chambre Verte, going through, listening to Brian's recordings and just spending the night in the room. And then we did a survey on the next day, and it undoubtedly, and I'm not, not everybody loved it, and some people are a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, but the vast majority just felt that whole sort of decompression, just relaxation, and a much better sense of well-being as they came out the room. And I think looking at it, the types of people that we had, actually the people that were getting the most out of it were people that had less exposure to nature. So I think there's a very marked difference from the people working in the city centre, because some of the people that we invited were already big on biophilia and nature and forest. So we didn't think that they got as much out of it, but the people that were city centre, some of the editors, some of the influencers that were sort of fast-paced living, definitely. For the room, yeah, we did it as an upgrade for the suite. Once we finished the project, it remained for about 3 months after it as an upgrade for the suite, and it was just an amazing sort of thing. And it definitely brought us a lot of PR as well. It was an absolute amazing project that just captured the imagination of all the editors, influencers. It was massively Instagrammable. So we ended up in pretty much every publication. I managed to get my ugly mug in GQ magazine, which is absolutely amazing for a biophilia room in Glasgow. But that was our first sort of foray into bringing nature in. As such, now in the hotel, the main restaurant breakfast area, we have about a 6 metre by 4 metre biophilic wall. So as when you're having your dinner, you're having breakfast, you've got this massive biophilic wall. We're installing one down in the spa, lounge and eating area as well, just because we love it so much, and we've had so many great results from the sort of biophilia in the room. And that was the sort of first hearing the power of Brian's recordings and the bird noises. As you lay back in the bed, surrounded by all these plants, and just listen to it. You could have been anywhere. You weren't just in city centre of Glasgow. When you looked out the window, you looked onto a sort of big office block and things, but when you're lying back in the bed, it just felt like you were in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So, and that's a good segue into this next project that we worked on, which is, I guess, taking it to the next level, and it's all about the transportative nature of sound. And Finlay and ISG used a product called ishga as their skincare treatment in all the spas. And ishga is a Scottish skincare brand. It's based on one of the Northern Islands, the Outer Hebrides, it's called, and it's very remote. And ishga, the word is derived from the traditional Gaelic. It's the word for water. So water is very intrinsic to it. They use seaweed there, and they've got a special method of harvesting the seaweed and extracting the goodness and the nutrients from that to create the skincare product. And really what we were looking to do was collaborate with both ishga and ISG to create a kind of sound experience that would match up or inform the ishga massage experience in the spa treatment room. And to be able to do this, I said, well, firstly, you have to be authentic. So, went up to the Hebrides, it's a flight, a boat, it's quite a mission to get there, a full day trip to get there. And we spent, a week recording the sounds of the islands, not just the field recordings, but also the traditional instruments. We worked with a lot of local musicians, and we got a great palette of sounds that then we were able to use to create this sort of sound treatment, this therapeutic soundscape that would in essence match up to the massage treatments that were being delivered in the hotel. And we created a 30-minute, a 60-minute, and a 90-minute sound treatment, and worked with ishga and their massage therapists to create a special massage that would coordinate itself with the sound. So essentially, when there's a wave sound coming in, the therapist would massage the body in time to that, which just creates this very kind of full sensory holistic experience for the listener, for the receiver, for the patient. and for the customer. And yeah, we've had a great response so far. It's been live for the last 3 months in a variety of different spas in the UK, and it really just shows you the power of sound, especially when it's delivered properly in these spa environments. You know, there's a revenue driving element to this. So some of the spas we've worked with have upsold this as an add-on. So you know, you potentially can you know, it pays for itself. And yeah, it's as I've mentioned the options there already.
Yeah, I think again, I sound quite demanding, but I'd said to Brian, you know, we want something that we can create multiple revenue streams, multiple experiences from. So Ishga and Brian collaborated to create the massage that, you know, just flows with the sounds, with the soundscapes. The therapists absolutely love it. It's just, you know, next level for them. And it's so interesting. And I, you know, for being a spas and a spa director, I don't always relax doing the treatment. The touch, it isn't always as comfortable for me. But absolutely, when you have that sort of soundscape in the background, you just drop so deep into that relaxation that would normally take me 25 minutes to start feeling relaxed, just drops you straight down, and you're just so receptive to the massage, which, you know, sometimes it makes it quite difficult. When Brian was sending me these soundscapes to look at, and you find yourself starting to nod off after sort of 5 minutes of listening to it, but you know, it's sort of doing what you want. So we sort of said, combining it with treatments, with a massage. We also said, I wanted it as sort of an add-on, so as the guest would have their treatment, they would go into our relaxation room, and then they would have 20 or 40 minutes of sound therapy as a paid add-on for their sort of experience, and also as a standalone. So as we would have guests that came in from the hotel, came in from outside just for a standalone sound treatment. Obviously, it's a bonus because it's not therapist led, so you don't have that sort of cost to it. So it is a clear sort of profit center, and it just adds to that experience. And again, you know, with the power of touch, the smell, the relaxation, and the thermals, the heat, the cold, and then it's sort of the final part of that 360 is the sound therapy and the relaxation. So it's given us a lot of options in some of our spas. It's the add-on, and we're about to launch in IHG. We're about to launch the ishga massage coordinated in the rest of them, and then in one of our ones, as of sort of 2 weeks ago, we have launched a specific sound wellness room. We had a room that was probably just a little bit too small for doing treatments in. What to do with it. So we got our heads together and we decided that we'd do a standalone sound treatment room. And then we did a bit of research, and we found a bed that, when you connect it up to your sound source, not only does it heat you, do a little bit of chromotherapy, but actually, as well as being in the headphones, the music comes up through the bed, and you have the sensation of the music and the bass and everything coming up through you, and it's just such a relaxed state to be in. Again, there's no therapist cost to it, so for your financial controllers, your GMs, it's an absolute winner. Again, you know, we all have team issues at some point. There's sickness, do you get double bookings, that sort of thing. So it gives you another revenue that, sorry, we can still get you a treatment, let's get you in, let's do our sound therapy room. So we launched that a couple of weeks ago, and we've had great feedback from the sort of editors. The first one we had in, I was obviously absolutely nervous. Sort of, I'll meet you afterwards, we'll go for a coffee, we'll have a chat. And she, yeah, let's do that. And then at the end of it, she's like, I can't, I'll phone you tomorrow. I need to just go and relax. I'm absolutely zoned out. So it was like, that's an absolute winner from that. So when we do that as a standalone treatment, with Charlotte Square, we'll create different packages for it. So as a standalone treatment, we'll probably launch it at about £45, just because as much as we want everyone to try it and the guests to try it and to sort of spread the word, and then we'll package it up with the thermal experience as well. So start off with the thermal experience, do the thermal journey, and then finish off with your sound therapy. There's a few more ideas that I want to progress with it, and I'll come to in a minute. And I don't know if Brian's seen them all, so he'll probably have a bit of a freak out at me when I say what we're going to do, but we'll go through that in a second.
I think there was a question there about binaural. I think that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're actually working on a binaural project right now for a different company. These sound treatments weren't mixed binaurally, but very much could be. And when we recorded a lot of the healing instruments, we made sure to record in a binaural setup, so we have that capacity. So yeah, certainly in future we will be looking at delivering binaurally.
Can you tell us a bit what that is? Because I actually have no idea what it is.
Right. Okay. So there's a sort of a little bit of a movement called binaural beats, and it's this. You can look up YouTube, and there's countless videos. Binaural beats and helping you get into a state of relaxation and sleep, and a lot of people find them very helpful. Essentially, it's playing music at two different frequencies on two different sides of your ear. So you've got two ears you're hearing, and then by doing so, slight variation creates this third frequency. And some people might think that that's a nice way of unlocking various chakras if you want to get very spiritual in this. But ultimately, there's a lot of I guess evidence and feedback to say from people that it can affect your mental state in a kind of bringing to that place of relaxation. So for us to record binaurally, we made sure that you get that full stereo in ear essence of what that instrument does and how it's played. So yeah,
it's quite an interesting one as well, and trying to get that balance between keeping it grounding, keeping it traditional, and then how much you do technology. Even back to the Chambre Verte, it was how much tech did we put in the room to play Brian's sounds, to get the feedback from the guests. We were like, oh, we'll do a survey in an iPad, and then we'll actually know we want to move away from that and away from technology in that setting. So it's quite interesting that they're trying to balance out what technology you use, what you don't, how you keep it sort of grounded. But some of the other sort of things that we have on the horizon, and I think the sound therapy for us is multiple avenues, but let's say the massage choreographed with the music and with treatments, standalone treatments, sound treatments as our aftercare. We have a bathhouse in several of our spas, and ishga, like we've said, means water, so they have a bathing experience where you have a seaweed bath with amazing detox effects, but actually now we'll combine that, so when you're in the bathing experience, you will have that sort of sound therapy playing. We're refurbing one of our pools at the moment, so we're actually putting speakers under the water, so as when you lie back, one of the loungers will create inside the pool and your ears go below the water, you'll then hear the sound therapy as well that we'll work on and do different sections of small sound therapy under the water. From a hotel perspective, looking for an in-room amenity, so as part of your sort of amenity list, you can phone down and we will bring up the iPad, the Swell app, headphones, so as you can be in your room after a hard day and go through that sound therapy, and you don't need to be down in the spa. And I think all hotels have some rooms that you tend to sell last or don't have a great view or different things. So in some of our sites, we're looking at the upgrade to the room is actually, it's got an amazing or a good sound system in it that's very clear, so as you can have that sound therapy. So instead of discounting the room or jazzing it up, we're actually going to make it as an upgraded option, so as you have the sound therapy. That decompression nature rooms, sensory rooms that we're starting to see and hotels grasping and creating those, so as in the hotel there is a room not to do with a spa, not to do with your bedroom, just a room that you can go to, whether there's a biophilic element to it, there's sound therapy. We're working on some sort of videos of the Hebrides combined with with Brian's soundtrack, so you can lie back and sort of have that sensory experience and just clear your mind from a hard day's sort of work or travel. And then looking at that sort of post visit, so ultimately, you know, with aromatherapy candles products, you know, do we put a QR code on them that when you light the candle, you can then QR code, and through your phone or your home iPad, you can have a short 10-minute soundscape from Brian's Swell app. So there's sort of unlimited possibilities as far as I can see, hence the reason I get quite excited about sound therapy and what it can do, you know, for the guests to give them that experience, to get them results, for the team to give them new and exciting things, for the revenue, unlimited revenue, and for those of us that are still struggling with team coming back and therapist shortages throughout Europe we've got at the moment, that we can still do treatments while we don't up to full capacity with our therapists.
Fantastic. And just the final slide is, you know, we've been getting lots of press on this, which is nice to point out.
Yep, it is absolutely captured the imagination of the press. I think that there's, you know, it's so different for them and so interesting. And then the influencers, it's so much Instagrammable content, so they've absolutely grasped onto it as well. So it's been an absolute win-win from a PR point of view, as much as it has been from revenue, from guest experience, all of those different things, which is always a bonus. And that's us.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. I mean, as I mentioned, if you're interested in what we do, swellstudio.io is our website, and happy to share my email if you'd like to get in touch. It's Brian at swellstudio.io.
Please put it, Brian, do you mind putting it in the chat box? Can you put it all in the chat box, and then everybody can copy it? And then I don't suppose you have something for us to hear, like a 30-second clip or something. I'm desperate.
Well, I mean, does Finlay have something there? Because
I don't. I'm on the wrong laptop. Could we send something out with the sort of link and send you an email to send round with a bit of a clip?
Oh, that will be stunning. Maybe send that, and then all the details of your email addresses and all of that, because it sounds unbelievable. And then anybody on the team, do you have any questions to ask? Is there anything that you want to know? I mean, my mind's already racing, so you're both going to hear from me in a while. There was something I wanted to ask you here. Oh, you answered it. I wanted to find out what was biophilic sound. Finlay, what I want to ask you is, with this sound therapy, and I know you covered it briefly, when you are introduced...
I'm getting music in the background. Is that coming from you, Brian?
No, Brian's muted for me.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Are we good? Have you still got music?
Don't know where that's coming from, but...
Maybe
that's your third year, perhaps.
I was going to say the third frequency. The third frequency. I love it. So, Finlay, when you're introducing this, now let's say we all brand new to this, right? Because everybody's playing whale music and whatever. Do you start by introducing a separate treatment, just like some advice to us, that's called sound therapy, giving it its benefits? Or do you start by a tiny upgrade to each treatment in cost that says, look, if you add an extra, let's say $10, how would you go about it?
Yeah, we initially have kicked off, because it's so new to the team, and we're still learning all about it. We've kicked it off as a bit of an upgrade, just so as we can get feedback as well. So the 20-minute, 40-minute upgrades off the back of the treatments. Then we'll go with the standalone, and then we'll start bracketing it into packages as well. So treatment, thermals, sound treatment, and then lunch, that sort of thing, and we'll package it all up. So at the moment, we've launched it as upgrades more for our learning, just to make sure that everything's smooth, and we get all the feedback before we launch it as a standalone.
Okay, and then somebody's asking, could this be used in a flotation tank? I'm assuming yes.
I would love to do that. I would love to collaborate with a flotation tank.
Sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then, Brian, in terms of the app, just a question that I'm sure other people are thinking as well. Do you constantly update, or do you only add by request? So only if somebody says, okay, I want a flotation tank soundtrack or whatever. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And if anyone's interested in trying the app, just send me an email. I'll put my email on the chat, and I'm happy to offer a free trial. You can listen to some sounds there in their entirety rather than just a couple of minutes sample or whatever. Test them out in your spas. For us, we'd just love for people to experience this and to feed back to us. You know, we're learning as we go, and as we said before, everyone is subjective with their listening. So it's great to get everyone to feedback from your different countries that you're in and different perspectives. But in answer to your question, very much the intention with the app is to create tools in which the experience can be updated, personalized, and really simplistic to use for each spa. Because one of obviously the big challenges is having to listen to the same stuff with the same playlist every day or the same types of sounds. So one of the solutions that we're working on at the moment is this AI, this very kind of algorithmically generated technology. We're working with an amazing university that's pioneering, you know, in a global kind of sense, the way in which AI can be used to kind of create soundtracks and sound treatments that will be personalized to the treatments you're doing, but also updated with new content, so we can continually feed in new content, new sounds, new field recordings, and different musical elements that then can keep keep you from straying into this kind of listener fatigue thing where you get the therapist just constantly listening to the same thing. It's really demotivating for them. So that's a big part of our development plan. So that'll be coming soon. At the moment, just to answer your question fully, you know, it would be on a per how do you phrase it, just per project basis.
Yes.
But there's options there that we can talk about. So happy to talk to anyone about that.
That's unbelievable. Okay, so I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I'll be getting hold of the two of you because I have lots of ideas. My mind is racing. I love it. Okay, anybody else have any questions for the two gents? I mean, this is I don't know, it's blown my mind, but I'm totally into how sound can affect your mood, like you said. Yeah. So no more questions. Okay, well then let's have your checkout words, everyone. So just a word, how you're feeling right now as we say goodbye to the two gents. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. I really, really, really appreciate it. I hope I get to meet you one day in person.
Thank you very much for having us on. It's been brilliant.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, with your permission, recommend you to Professional Beauty because I speak there every year at their spa convention. And one of the things that I spoke about in my talk this year when I went was, again, the whole personalizing thing because I'm such a freak about it. And I spoke about music. I said how we have to stop this monotonous music that is driving me insane when I go to the spas. So now I have somebody to recommend to them that can do just that. So if that's okay with the two of you, I'm going to chat to Mark about it. I think it's excellent to add to the speaker lineup. Okay, so Stavros from Greece, he joined us a little bit later. Nice to have you on, Stavros. Yes, it's a total game changer. I agree with you. I'm totally blown away. So this is totally up my alley. So Danae says, interesting. Dominique says, thank you for an interesting session. Gail says, thank you. It was wonderful hearing your wonderful ideas. Yvette says, so refreshing. I feel energized. I feel like I need to not go to a low. I feel like I need to go to a high, actually. Danae says, thank you, very interesting. We'll love a change in the normal spa music. I know, it's just incredible. Okay, gents, thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch. And I really do hope to meet you soon, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You. And to everybody, we'll chat soon. Thanks for joining us. And to those of you on Facebook, we'll chat soon. If you did miss the recording, you can get it on our YouTube channel. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.